Hi there, it's Kevin with the Rogue Market here with another update towards Double Masters. We finally have Double Masters on the run. A free fall is starting to happen. This is a little bit earlier than I expected with this, and we will just address the market changes with Double Masters in this video. Sorry, I haven't been keeping up with the EV. We had a point where Double Masters was being very stubborn. There definitely is a force of big money that whenever cards hit a certain threshold, they get bought out. There are a few particular cards that I'm seeing this happen with. One of them is mainly Walking Ballista, another one's Stoneforge Mystic. That once those cards hit a certain threshold, then they're immediately snapped up. So I think there is some big money investment happening in these cards that are stabilizing cards that I think still should go down more than they're currently at. But anyway, I apologize for not keeping up. There wasn't much change, and I was having some issues with my computer overheating, but I think we got it all figured out now, and I can get back in the rhythm of things of keeping track of Double Masters. So what happened? Why is this a big collapse in my opinion? There was the spoilers alone from when they did the Commander Legends caused Double Masters to drop 4%. Just after they were like right within that video time of when they're spoiling Commander Legends. And then now we've seen over the past few days, we've seen massive decreases in the EV of Double Masters. So let's take a look at it here. You can see what I'm talking about with Dawnglare. You can see that it was staying quite stable at that 290 to 280 range. Had that snapback of when the FOMO hit with Double Masters when it fell right after release, but it looks like they were almost to that point again. So I'm going to try to be the bigger person here, the adult here, and not rub it into all the people that were just slamming me on this channel and on my Rogue Deck Builder channel about how I just gave the worst advice and people lost money because that was the time to invest and blah, blah, blah. And now, not even a month later, we're down to the levels that was the previous bottom. And we should, by, I would say, the end of next week, surpass the bottom that it hit with the lack of buyers. I think when the first big wave of supply, the first big vendors put the prices up, and then there was a bit of a snapback. It's crazy right there at that peak from where it hit its low to where it hit its high. Like someone bought out Card Kingdom. Like Card Kingdom and Star City Games were completely wiped out of almost every card because the FOMO was just off the charts. The people had to get in on these cards. I mean, look at these cards, they're so cheap. And people just pulled the trigger too early, too soon, and now they have already lost, a good 20-30% of the value that they put in. And again, a lot of these are in the collectors and the players category. They're not necessarily investors, but there definitely was some investment money, and that was just a huge loss. Be patient in Magic the Gathering. You cannot, especially in the singles market, you cannot pull the trigger on these FOMO markets, even if the FOMO scenario does come true, that is the lowest price you're ever going to get in, there are better places to sink your money on cards that will have a better chance of recovering than a brand new set. This is something that is tried, tested, and true in Magic the Gathering. These cycles always happen. You can go back to Ultimate Masters and Masters 25 and Iconic Masters and always see that is never the time to get in on cards right after the release. It's not rocket science. It is something that trends every time there's a new set. So we are starting to see the free fall. One of the major reasons is Jumpstart did have another wave, or didn't really have the wave, but the second half of the first wave was released. So now people are looking at Jumpstart and saying, oh wow, there's better value in Jumpstart. I need to then move some money from Double Masters over to Jumpstart, and now we're seeing the decline happen. We also saw Commander Legends was the new shiny toy that everyone just had to have, and we are seeing across the board things starting to level off and start to go down in most of these sets. So I'm not going to focus too much on this. Again, we're going to focus a lot on where Double Masters is. So you can also see this trend with the total value of Double Masters. You saw it was definitely trending down after that initial spike up from the 1372 back up to the 1618, but you can see a steady decline from then, and then some big jumps here. So look where the line really starts to jump down, 1523 to 1516, down to 1492 to 1470 to where it's going to be, who knows, by tomorrow. Usually after weekends, you do see a little bit of a bull rush on some of these cards, especially ones that have gone down to prices that I think are investable, and then you see the big money really coming and cleaning up those particular cards. So the biggest change over the last few days is the stubborn cards, I like to call them. The ones that have price memory, they are beginning to crack. So cards like Mana Crypt, Force of Will, Jace the Mind Sculptor have been the big losses, and the same can be said for, like, on the rare end of things, like the Mana Echoes. Mana Echoes is the card that got hit really hard. In fact, you can find prices for much cheaper even than 12. So these are the cards that you can see over here by the weekly. I guess Goldfish can show weekly here. These are the cards that percentage-wise are starting to get hit. The hardest is these higher end. Mana Reflections actually was the most significant card to get hit. Got Scarab God also leveling off in price. So I still have my updated spreadsheet, just barely updated it with going by TCG kind of low. Not the low, but kind of low with shipping, with and even with reasonable amount of copies at this price. And we'll just kind of go over this now. So right now we have Dawn Glare EV, you saw at 260. The total projected price of where I said that will be the bottom of the significant cards will be 822. The total current is about 1,089.50. The 65%, which is the metric that I use for judging any reprint set, is that the cards can only be worth 65% of its 2-year low, is 1051. So the total current is just about there with the 65% of the 2-year low. Again, a lot of this price is being held on by the stubborn cards that still need to fall within this range. The 2-year high for the total value of the set was 1557. So now it's lost about 45. So it's lost almost 55% of the value there was a total value, it was 2408. The total value of the 2-year was 1,557. So the total value right before it was reprinting $2,408, and it is now down to 1089, which puts it at 45.25% of the value of before it was reprinted. So it's lost over half its value, and it still has a ways to go, in my opinion. So the average mythic is now $21.21. Alrighty, so let's just go down some of these cards. So I've recolor coded this. I will share this in the description box below. And so I've got all the ones that are highlighted that have hit my predictions. And the yellows are just about there, and the reds still do have some time. And remember, these predictions were something for like 6 to 8 months down the road. They weren't something for just a month down the road. So people are saying that I'm wrong on these cards. Whoa. Come on, let's just wait. Let's give it some time to breathe. My huge prediction for when these cards are going to begin to decline the most is after those fetch lands are spoiled in Zendikar. So if we see that happen, and then this doesn't happen, we don't see a massive decrease in price, then you're allowed to call me every name in the book. But until then, I didn't predict that they were just going to massively crash immediately. It's going to be a process, especially these ones that had price memory. I say that investors are going to stubbornly hold on to their copies and just, they're praying to Jesus at this point that their cards can hold value so they can actually recoup on some of these cards. But they're not going to. They're going to get crushed. And even the cards like the Force of Wills and the Chrome Moxes and the Mox Opals and the other, Jace, there's a Jason Mind Sculptor. That's a really good one. Those still have a ways to go down in value because there is not going to be the amount of people, there's not going to be a amount of buyers, especially when investors want to move their money over into Commander Legends. So, all right, so cards like Archangel of Thune, it's currently 11, 10's what I adjusted it for. That I think puts it at where I think it should be. All the ones in greens I think are actually pretty decent points to start sinking some money in, because I think that they will have the opportunity to start to snap back. And I think that once they hit these bottoms, they're the ones that are going to be least affected long term. If you actually looked at Ultimate Masters, you can see some of these, especially like the more commander cards. These hit their bottoms pretty quick, like a month or two after, and then they started actually slowly go up. And some of the more competitive cards took forever. In fact, some of the cards from Ultimate Masters still hadn't hit their low at the time of printing in Double Masters. So I think Archangel Thune and Arkham Dagsson they've now hit my predicted prices. They're pretty decent for these little pickups if they don't get reprinted again. We have Atraxa that is staying pretty high. My adjust was 15, so this one's actually more like a yellow than a red. I'm only $3 off of where I thought Atraxa was going to go. In fact, there were some points where Atraxa did hit this point of the low, but these are still my prices that I think are good times to get in on these cards. So 15 was my price point for Atraxa. Archangel Avacyn still has a ways to go. Maybe I was a little bit aggressive because of the 2-year low here. I'm putting it at 20. But it's still currently stabilizing at 27. Archangel Avacyn's also another or another card that once it hits that $25 threshold, there's a lot of big money that scoops it up that I've noticed with this card particularly. So they're kind of keeping that shelf arbitrarily high because someone is willing to sink in at the so someone's done what I've done with this 20. So once it hits 25, they snap it up. Avengers Zendikar is still, it did hit its low at 4. There was a point last week when it did, but it snapped back up to 6. I think that's a pretty smart. I probably should have adjusted this a little bit higher because Avengers Zendikar is actually one of the most played cards in this set for Commander. So it does have that real demand, especially with these, the lower power level decks, the landfall decks, those the wombo combo synergistic decks from Commander, which has, in my opinion, I'll have to link the video for EDH Rec, where I guess Channel Fireball pulled everybody at the command zone for their tournaments of what was the most played portion of Commander, and is people that rated their deck 6 or 7. So it wasn't the more competitive cards, and I think Avengers Zendikar would be the kind of epitome of a 6 or 7 card. It's not crazy competitive. You can do some flashy stuff with it, but it is kind of a Timmy card. It's kind of like I make a bunch of stuff and swing with it, or I make a bunch of tokens with a Purphoros out and kill everybody. So that is definitely a definition of it's not like a 1 or 2 card. It's definitely the 6 or 7 range. So I think those are the cards that actually have the highest chance. Like, people always talk to me about how this card's a competitive EDH card, a C EDH card. It's going to go up, it's going to go up. And they're in their own little world that's kind of like the competitive players in Magic. It's like more like, in my opinion, that's even more like Legacy. There's this very niche of people that actually play C EDH. And their cards are not the cards that have the best long-term outlook. It is those cards that are 6 and 7. So Avengers Zendikar, perfect example of a 6 and 7 card. So now we have cards like Batterskull. It's hit where it's at. Blightsteel Colossus, I was very aggressive on Blightsteel Colossus. It may never hit my adjusted price. I was being very aggressive with this card. It is down to 32 now, but it's got a long ways to go. In fact, I probably should think that this card won't go below 20 with price memory really holding on, but I could still see that. This is one of the cards that is getting hit the hardest. Brea has now hit its point. Chrome Mox is a ways to go. Again, I thought that this would take a while. I was really banking on that 65% of the 2-year low for Chrome Mox, but as this card goes down in value, a lot of people actually do pick it up for Commander. It is like a upgrade for people that have never been able to afford it. It's been a very pricey card from time to time. Yeah, I got up to $75. We have Dark Confident. I really need to change this to green because I think that this one is really hit. You can find it for 25. The thing about Dark Confident is the spread between the Dark Confident, the sniffing Joe Biden Dark Confident and the regular Dark Confident are razor thin. No one likes the sniffing card, so that full art and the foil have like very low multipliers compared just to the normal Dark Confident. So I think there is still some ground to be given for the regular Dark Confident. We have Dark Depths. It is now below. It's actually 13. It's below where I put it with a $15 price tag. We have the Darksteel Forge that is almost there. We have some cards that are much higher, like Doubling Season at 41. This is another card that once it hits that $40 threshold, it gets bought up. And Ensnaring Bridge hasn't gone down, or Force of Will. Force of Will was another aggressive pick on my point that it'd be a $50 Force of Will. I still think it will hit $50. Possibly, maybe it will only go down to like 65, but Force of Will got crushed this week. A couple days ago, 92 was the lowest I could find it. Now there is like a page of $80 Force of Wills. And it's just because the card does have that. It's extremely iconic, but the sheer amount of cards from Double Masters this is a card that has to give. The $130 price tag was misguided to begin with. So Force of Will had this massive increase in price when Therese Nielsen was banned. So people thought that, this made a great spec because they'll never be able to use Therese Nielsen's artwork ever again. And there was just a run on Force of Wills. And lo and behold, they printed a Therese artwork and another artwork that people actually prefer more over the Therese Nielsen artwork in this set. And so that was just a misguided investment. People shouldn't have gone into Force of Will that quick. And so it had some price adjustment to be occurring to begin with. Back to that, a more reasonable 105 should have been the real high for Force of Will before it had that, people speccing in on the band art. So this was a weird anchor price to begin with. So I'm thinking that 65% of the high should probably put about $65. So I was very aggressive with this. Could definitely end up being wrong with Force of Will. Geist Geth in my price range. Imperial Recruiter is almost there, actually. This actually shouldn't be a red. This is more like a yellow because it's getting down $15 versus $18 is pretty close. Jace is still stubbornly holding on at 50. I think that's going to go down to 35. Kalia is getting close there. Karn is getting close to my predictions. Karthus is there. Land Tax is actually quite a ways away for Land Tax. I think that this is another card that the more this price gets affordable, people just chuck it in a deck because it's super, super powerful in Commander. And then we have a bunch of the swords and these type of cards that this lower end, I definitely was not as strong as this higher end. I think I got very aggressive with these particular cards, but one of the swords is very close to where I predicted, and I still don't know why War of Peace and Body Minder are stubbornly staying high because they really just don't see a lot of play in any format. But these two, the really good ones, are the Holy Trinity of Swords, the Sword of Feast of Famine, Fire and Ice, and Light and Shadow. I think that Light and Shadow has cracked, and Feast and Famine, Fire and Ice are the next ones that are going to crack in that price tag. So Vengevine, another great pickup. This is one if you can find them at the $4. There was plenty of pages of around this price. You can find the shipping prices decent, and bundle it with other cards. You can get Vengevines for $4. And I think this is a great pickup because Vengevine will see play again in Modern at some point. If you believe that Modern will have a heyday again, where there will be tournaments and world paper prices will affect these cards, I think Vengevine is a great pickup. I think that even going up to $5 is very, very reasonable for Vengevine. Now here is where rares are pretty much there. They're at the price point that I want them at. All the ones in green here, like look, Exploration is down to that $15 price tag. This is my pick for the rare that has the best outlook, that and Cyclonic Rift. Cyclonic Rift is not down to the point that I was at. That was a misclick here. This one still has a couple bucks to go. Maybe 19 will be the low for Cyclonic Rift, but the supply is really high for these cards that also have the artwork with them. So Cyclonic Rift, I think, still can be dumbed down a bit, and even Exploration might go down lower than what I predicted the all-time low was going to be. Like, these still have time, and they're already... Look at Blood Moon. I picked $10 for this card, and it's down to $7. It just got absolutely crushed. And maybe I should have been more aggressive because it was only at 15 when it was reprinted. But this is a card that, speaking of Blood Moon, I actually have seen pictures of these high-end investors that have been scooping up Blood Moons. We're talking like big stacks of Blood Moons, especially in these competitive players. And there's there's already been some big money investing going on in the set, and it's still cracking. That's what I'm warning people about this set. It is finally going to be the straw that breaks the camel's back and start this free fall in the MTG economy. We go down here for some of the other cards that are in the yellow that are close with the lands. The lands all had snapbacks, so the lands got hit hard. They snapped back up in price, but I think they will eventually hit where I predicted them. We have Goblin Guide, Greater Good, Hammer, Icecrown Scepter all hitting the price points that I thought they'd hit. Mana Reflection is actually almost there. This one was was stubbornly holding its price. It's down to 8. It predicted 5. Maze of Ith actually isn't a red. It's more of a yellow because it's only $1 off the price tag that I thought it was at. And Mesmeric Orb is down below where I predicted. Mystic Gate's about right there. Noble Hierarch is actually getting really close. Same with the Metamorph and the Pure Steel Paladin. And then we have Stoneforge Mystic that I think is stubbornly staying high. But this is I just put the ceiling at $15 for every rare. This is probably my most sold card from Double Masters of just the ones I get like traded in. We haven't opened up much Double Masters, just a couple drafts. I don't like opening up sealed product to sell cards, even though I have a local game store with demand. I rely on trade-ins because people, especially Commander players, have no impulse control. And same with competitive players. They need their cards they want for a particular day. And so they cannibalize their collection to get. And so a lot of these people that have opened up Double Masters, quote unquote, for me, have traded in their cards already. We had customers that bought 5 VIP packs, full Double Masters boxes. They're the ones that have been trading these cards back in because they need some other card. And all the Stoneforge Mystics that I've traded in, they just flew off the shelf at this price point. So maybe I was a little bit aggressive on this particular one. But Walking Bliss is one that I definitely have been seeing a lot of movement in. This did go down to $7 at one point, so it was actually below my adjusted price. But it seems like every time Walking Bliss gets below 12, it gets snapped up. So there's a lot of big investment money in Walking Ballista. So Just want to make you aware of that card. So all in all, yep, this is what we're seeing with it. You can come over and check TCG Player and see that these cards are definitely in free fall. There are some goodies though. I think that starting to pick up some of these cards are in that $1 to $2 range, like the Eric's Mephis Slumbering Isle. However you say this card, I probably murdered the name. These are pretty good. Like, this is the price point I like because they can't go much further. So going down from $1 to 65 cents, even though that's like a 35% decrease, in the scope of things is actually not that much, because you're going to be paying the majority of this stuff in like shipping and fees to be getting on these cards. So all of these cards that are below $1, these could easily snap back up to $5 price tags in the future. Like, all of these cards have been $5 or above cards, like Basilisk Collar, Baleful Strix, Awakening Zone, Adaptive Automaton. These are not terrible cards. They see a lot of play in the various formats, and so they are not bad pickups. Blasphemous Act, this is one that goes up to $7 all the time. Blinkmoth Nexus, if you think that the Affinity will ever be able to see play, I know without Mox Opal it's very, very tough for Affinity to compete in Modern now, but Blinkmoth Nexus was a card that held a huge price tag at one point in time. If we come over to the next page here with even cards like Braids that see a decent amount of Commander play, these are pickups in my opinion. These are absolutely cards that are cards you can hold on to and should go up to $2, $3, $4 eventually. They're at their low because they're the ones that had to crack the soonest, because people were digging for those Force of Wills. And so they tried to recoup their cost, because a lot of investors too, and a lot of collectors, they don't even recognize cards that have any sort of inherent value. It's either Force of Will or busts. And there is a lot of money. You can go check my Rogue Deck Builder video on investors. We have an investor-driven market where there's more investors than there are players. And investors have no clue about metas or what Timmies want or the casuals are targeting. This is my bread and butter. I sell these cards all day long. The amount of Champion of Lamphold, this is a card that I had because I remember, like, every time I can find a card for 7 cents, I pick it up. And Champion Lamphold was one of those cards years ago from, what was this, like Dark Ascension days, that I picked up as a bulk rare and had stacks of these. And I was out because this is such a Timmy. Talk about that like 5-6 power level card. That's Champion of Lamphold to a T. And these are the cards that have the best long-term ability to go back up unless they're reprinted. And a lot of times they go up way past that point to where their buy list is higher than you get in on. So if you get on this card at 35 cents and then in a year Card Kingdom's paying $1 for these cards, that's not a bad cash out day. And I've rinsed and repeated these cards so many times, and people will argue with me with blue in the face that you have to target cards that are $5 or more, otherwise you get killed by fees. Yeah, I've used TCG Player or eBay, two things I do not use. I avoid TCG Player and eBay like the plague, unless there's a card that I think is going to get crushed by a reprint. That's the only time I use them. Otherwise, I'm being patient, and I'm using outlets that don't have fees, like Facebook pages, like, private Discords, like doing big trades. That is the way that I actually make money off of these cards. And yes, buy list. A lot of times you can make more on the buy list to the Card Kingdoms and the Star City games than avoiding the fees on TCG Player. I don't know why anybody would sell cards like this on TCG Players. You are going to get killed by the fees. But anyway, I think they're still great pickups. So there you have it for this kind of update for the Double Masters. I'll try not to rub it in everyone's face, but I'm a petty person, so I'm pretty sure I'll do a video of all the screenshots of people calling me names and whatnot, and do a fun little video with that. Hope you enjoyed this video. This has been Kevin with the Rogue Market. I'll link this update sheet so you can look at it. Thanks for watching.